In Manipur, demands are growing for president's rule and for the calling in of the army, even as the Supreme Court has so far not made any urgent intervention. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo Story, a consistent focus on the Manipur story, bringing you all sides of the conflict, voices from across the trenches continues. But it is the suffering of the ordinary people that we must focus on. It is the suffering of the citizens that we must focus on. On this program yesterday, you heard from a woman leader of the Kuki community. In a short while from now, we'll be looking specifically at this conflict once again through the lens of women as a major peace activist, a women's peace activist for the Northeast region joins us. But many are continuing to ask why the Prime Minister himself is not making an intervention, why the Prime Minister himself is not speaking. As I said, that there is an increasing clamor now for President's rule. The Chief Minister of the state is seen to be by the Kuki community, somebody who's partisan. On the other side, the Meitei community is calling the Kuki community militants, insurgents, groups that are anti-India. In all this name calling, we are talking about thousands of people who have been displaced. We are seeing even the ruling party's own legislators and those who work for them and with them not safe. We have seen the homes of state ministers torched. We have seen a union minister's house torched. We have seen a BJP MLA whose skull has been smashed, who's crippled, unable to speak, trying to recover in a hospital in Delhi, even as the driver who was on duty with him died. What is the way forward? Let's introduce our newsmaker on the program today. Binalakshmi Nepram joins us. She's a well-known peace activist. She's the convener for the Northeast Women's Peace Initiative. She's from the Meitei community herself, and we've been trying to get you voices from both communities to best understand a conflict that not many of us outside of the Northeast understand. Bina, let me start by actually just asking you, how are you? I had another guest on yesterday, and I just feel like in all this talk of politics, we forget that there are real people and real lives involved. So how are you doing?
Barkha, that's the most heartwarming question that we have ever been heard asked since 3rd of May. Our hearts are broken. We are just barely holding on, Barkha. What we are seeing in Manipur is just not a fight between two communities, but because these two communities have been living together for so many centuries, and I have friends. I had Kuki women who were my teachers. I have some of our best friends are Kukis. So we are absolutely heartbroken for the last several weeks, and there seems to be no end in sight. So thank you again. It's so important to take care of each other. Beyond the politics, it's the hand holding, the heart holding, not just between Kuki and Meitei women, but women across the country, women across who care that our societies should be able to have peace and normalcy. So we are heartbroken, but we are standing strong and resolute as women because we know that if we break, society will not be able to revive back. So we are holding on, Barkha. We are just holding on.
Bina, when I hear you, I hear the broken heart. I see it in these images. We see it in the tears of these women. We see it even without words, we see it, we feel it, we hear it. But if I were to go back to you for a moment and ask you, do you feel, what's the one word you'd use? I know you're close even at this point to tears because you describe a broken heart.
Yeah.
What's that one word you'd use to describe your emotion? Is it fear? Is it cynicism?
I think not just me, but 3.3 million people in Manipur, we feel completely abandoned by India. Completely abandoned. Because for the last 48 days now, how can you let these violence continue with the fourth largest army in the world? This is the question that every Kuki, every Meitei, every community, and by the way, I always identify myself as a human being who happened to be born in Manipur. The love that I have for Manipur is not just because I was born to Meitei parents. I've always identified myself as a human born in the state, the beautiful state of Manipur. So right now, Manipuris feel completely abandoned by, by the country.
We've had the Supreme Court today refuse to urgently intervene in the state. This was in response to petition by the Kuki community, and they said this is an issue of law and order. The state must handle it. Many people across communities are now asking for president's rule. They see the chief minister's failure to control law and order as now part of the problem. The chief minister is no longer necessarily seen as part of the solution. How do you see these demands for president's rule?
Barkha, you know that our honorable president of our country, and we are so proud to have a tribal president of our country, but she's just a figurehead. The people who wield power in Delhi, Barkha, you and I know who they are. And it is incumbent upon those decision makers that they ensure that peace returns to Manipur. I doubt that even a president's rule can bring about peace and normalcy. There's a complete power vacuum. There's a complete abandonment of decision making. This is a complete sort of absolutely thrown to the wind, our people, and we have no idea why they are doing it. But we are acutely aware that next year is general elections. And the silence of our prime minister stuns us, Barkha. How could he completely don't even utter a word? So this is what is astounding. So not even a president's rule, in my opinion, can bring about peace and normalcy in that state. So we are at the loss of ideas as to what must be done. It is dependent on those decision makers in Delhi, and you and I know who they are, that they do all in their power to make peace return back to Manipur.
You know, whether I speak to the Meitei community or the Kuki community, women in particular are saying the prime minister must speak. Why is it so important to the people? I know it sounds like a silly question, but I think the audience needs to understand why every day somebody from Manipur comes on our platform and says, we want the prime minister to speak. The government will turn around and say, we sent the home minister, we've announced a judicial probe. Why is it so important for the people of Manipur to hear from Prime Minister Modi at this hour?
I will answer it in a seminal way, Barkha. Yes, every one of us have been asking that the prime minister's silence is deafening. And the reason is because he is the prime minister of India. He is not just a prime minister of Gujarat. He is a prime minister of Manipur too. And as the head of a nation, the head of a nation has a responsibility that if a part of the country is in turmoil, a turmoil that we have never seen in the history of Manipur, where there is an violence of the most horrific atrocities committed, and no one is able to do anything after even spending the Indian army chief. In spite of the home minister being there, the violence sort of increased. So the only way the people of both the communities are responding is, why is the head of our nation keeping quiet about this? Sometimes it's also just a word of support, which is important and critical. It's, as you mentioned, how are you, you ask. We wanted the prime minister to come and say, how are the people of Manipur? And he has not even said this. And this is the reason why his silence is what is deafening, and the feeling of being abandonment that we are feeling at this moment. It's an epitome.
Talk a little bit about, you opened by saying you've had teachers who are from from a different community, how there have been friendships across the Meitei and Kuki community, how this separation that exists today has not always been the case. How did it come to be that the Meiteis look at or the leadership of the Meiteis is calling the Kuki community insurgents, anti-national, militants, and the Kukis are basically saying the Meiteis are coming into our land, they're taking our land, if we have arms it's to defend ourselves. Do you believe that this began with the court judgment that wanted to give tribal status to the Meitei community, to your community, or do you believe there's something deeper than the court order?
Yes, Barkha, there is something deeper than the court order. Uh, the reason that I say is this, and I would like to take your viewers to understanding that the northeast of India is home to about 272 indigenous groups, and Manipur has about 34 plus indigenous communities and other communities living. It's like a mini India where there are multiple religion, multiple. Manipur doesn't even consist of just Kukis and Meiteis alone. It has several other beautiful groups who have been in coexistence for a long time. And in my research and writing and work in the field, we realize that over the past 30 to 40 years, because of an ongoing, insurgency in the northeast of India, what has happened is the weaponization of our identities happening in since 1990s, Barkha, which means that government of India, when it was trying to subdue some of the bigger armed groups, they started arming and training smaller ethnic groups, which also included the Kuki community and also so many other smaller groups. As a result, it's like trying to fight fire with not with water to douse the fire in the northeast, because nation building has to be done, I believe, with a lot of love and not at gunpoint. And government of India was not able to do good governance, and rather they tried to subdue the violence in Manipur by bringing in arming more ethnic groups. As a result, Barkha, since the 1990s, there has been what I call a war against a war phenomena happening in Manipur alone. I've done extensive research in JNU on this. And as a result, a lot of armed groups have been operating, and they collect taxes. They're the ones who decide which persons to go to be a candidate for the I don't know if you're aware that they even wrote armed groups even wrote to Amit Shah saying you should choose our candidate. So in fact, our democracy, Barkha, has been at gunpoint in Manipur, not on 3rd of May, but for almost 2 to 3 decades. What we are seeing now is a byproduct of that, number one. Number two, what is happening in Burma has also repercussions on the region, because Burma, after the military Tatmadaw takeover, 1.4 million people in Burma has been identified as internally displaced. A majority of them are in Sagaing region, which borders Manipur. And several thousands of people have crossed over. And there has been, the other thing is, so I am against any name calling of any community, Barkha. No one should be labeled anything, because, these are conflicts engineered by very powerful people who are close to gun running, drug trafficking, and human trafficking. This is not a conflict between two communities. The reason I say this, because after the Burmese military coup, through Barkha, a lot of Burmese drug traffickers, drug lords shifted their base to Manipur. That according to the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime and many other sources, Manipur became a part of the Golden Pentagon, which produces more than 60 to 70% of the world's heroin. So these hill areas of Manipur, they were deforested with poppy plantation. So drug lords, poppy is very, very lucrative. And from there, they buy guns, arming communities, and then they buy our votes, Barkha. So we now have a criminalization of our democracies happening. You please investigate, as a responsible journalist, who are the members, politicians in Manipur with drug linkages. You just have to Google search to find out. So this for more than 20 years, Barkha, I've been researching and writing on this and saying, please decriminalize our politics, our democracy. The inability of the government of India to handle this has resulted in the mess and in the pain that Manipur is.
What is it like for women? You lead a Northeast Women's Peace Initiative. I was speaking to somebody from the Kuki community yesterday who said that there are 50,000 people who are living in relief camps. And she said that the food aid is not coming from the government. The food aid is all right now a private initiative. What is it like for women who have to, look after their children, who have so many things to manage? Medicines are running short. What is it like for women in particular right now?
So, Barkha, a lot of people in our country think that Northeast is a place where women have a stronger position, just because we don't wear a gungat or a burqa, because we walk with our open hair and do our work. Within that veneer, we have a very patriarchal society in both Kuki and Meitei community. It is a society where men decides. It's our men who fight. It's our men who have engineered this conflict. As a result, for us, I started the Manipur Women Gun Survivors Network because there are 20,000 registered widows in Manipur. And many of them are widows. We work with both Kuki community, Naga community, Meitei community, Manipur for the last 15 years of our life. So women have been sandwiched in this conflict for a long, long time. And as a result, with this, what has happened on 3rd of May, it has further exacerbated the condition of women in conflict. So there's been sexual violence, rape, and killing of women, which has happened in this conflict. And as you as you said, and so a lot of, and then women are forced to protest, women are forced to say what the dictates of those at gunpoint. So there are very few of us who are able to speak out. For even speaking out, I have been threatened so many times. But some of us have to, like just you did, Barkha, we have to speak truth to power. And regarding the refugee camps and displaced camps, it has increased from 50,000. It is now close to 70,000 in 359 displaced and refugee camps. And people have fled in 3 directions, one to Mizoram, some to Delhi, some to Assam, and there are 300 who even fled to Burma. So those who have fled outside the state, the Mizoram government is trying to provide them. In Manipur, they are trying to provide to the people who are in the valley areas, and then others. So it is a combination of a civil society, good Samaritans, and the government has also done a little bit because, for example, 100 crores was what Amit Shah, the Home Minister, announced for relief and rehabilitation. So, and it's we as women groups, we are trying to ensure that we are able to get the support that is needed. It's not just about food and malaria medicines, but it's also about children's education are severely disrupted. We are trying to see books, crayons to children, sanitary napkins for women, because people have just fled. So people don't even have anything. So we have tried as of our little team to get even, little creams for the women, because you just fled with nothing. So basic things are needed, and people are doing everything we can to provide that to the survivors.
You said that you have friendships, deep friendships across communities. You do not
Yes.
see this as Mighty versus Cookies.
No.
Can you recall a moment, a memory of
Yes.
someone who shaped your life, who's from the Kuki community, who you've
Yes.
been close to, whom you've learned a lot from?
Absolutely. I remember particularly 2 Kuki women. One was my teacher in Little Flower School, and she is one of the best teachers that I ever had. And I remember when I was in 3rd grade, I was going to meet her, and my mother said, "Have you taken anything for your teacher?" And we didn't have anything at home. My mother said, "When you ever go to someone's house, don't go empty-handed." So she gave me a pot of matkaka curd. And I still remember, I was in 3rd grade. I
Yeah.
took this dahi in matkaka pot, because Manipuri women make it, to my Kuki teacher's house. And from that day onwards, it taught me not just a love of a teacher, but to never go to someone's home empty-handed. Miss Ching is her name. And the second woman who really influenced my life is an extraordinary Kuki woman leader, Barkha. Please interview her one day. Her name is Ima Rose Mangsi. I call her Ima, which in Meitei language means mother.
Okay.
She's the first tribal woman in Manipur to ever have a master's degree.
Oh, how
She was,
wonderful.
yes,
Yeah.
and she also taught in GP Women's College, where many Meitei girls studied for many years. And then she also tried to contest for the member of parliament, I think. So she is one of the most extraordinary, leaders that entire money. I wish Our politics made people like her our leaders. So Ima Rose Mangsi is someone who has so much of love in her heart and who has always guided us. In fact, during the Kuki Naga clash of the 1990s, the Kuki Mothers Association was formed, where hundreds of Kukis were killed in the Naga Kuki clash. The Kuki Mothers Association, she told us, was formed to help women survivors of this ethnic conflict. She taught us this, and we have always worked together through thick and thin of all these years. And I have so much
Yeah.
of respect for her. And we have also worked in Churachandpur with so many widows. We have built shops for Kuki women whose husbands have been killed by their own armed groups. So it's like
Yeah.
the
And I'm
weaponization
so
is also, yeah. Yeah.
and that's why it's so important to hear these voices, because otherwise it just sounds like two people pitted against the
Yeah.
other. Finally, I want to show you. You would have seen this report. We went to Delhi's Apollo Hospital and we found one of the Kuki. Can we take the banner off, please? We found, one of the Kuki BJP MLAs and his
Yes.
wife. His skull was smashed, right?
Absolutely.
And his driver died. And this is a BJP legislator, and in a way, it captures even the fault lines within the ruling party, where 7 of the BJP MLAs, 3 of their alliance partners, all 10 cookies have said, we want a separate administration. Do you, as a peace activist, think that it is now, it has become inevitable? Like, what does that say to you? Do you think that's a solution?
Barkha, the fact, again, seeing his photograph, his wife's tears, Barkha, it breaks our heart. No human being deserves, with so much of this kind of hurt that has happened to this family, and through 170 lives which have been lost in the last 4 weeks. And no one deserves, and most of all, a leader, someone who has been a prominent leader. So our hearts and our condolences goes to each and every family, and including this family that you have shared. And this is what brings us our anger, is to the fact that why our politics have become so violent, that for winning elections, for controlling your vote banks, is this what political parties in this country do to us? Is this how you want to govern us? This decadence of our politics and our democracy has resulted in this Kuki father's fracturing of his skull and driver losing his life, and so to hundreds of other people, and also many Meitei families who have lost their sons and their husbands in this conflict. So our abhorrence to the decadence of Indian politics, if this is democracy, a democracy which has made us hate each other, then this kind of politics the entire country should shun. So what is happening in Manipur is a microcosm of what is happening in this country. And again, it is so important for the public to wake up, that let the Manipur violence be a lesson, not just to the people of Manipur across ethnic divides, but a lesson to the entire country, that if you do
Yeah.
not make the right leaders, this will happen to you also. Because the
Well,
way, yeah,
yeah, I want to ask you in the end. Of course, you talk about the weaponization of identity, politics, politicians playing with fire, and then that fire actually comes to devour them too. That's the irony, right? Politicians are not spared. It's like when you let the genie out of the bottle, you can't put the
yes.
genie back on the bottle. When you ride the tiger, you can't control the tiger. This we know from studying politics. My last question to you is, in this moment of heartbreak, which is, I think, your overwhelming feeling, if you had one prescriptive suggestion, a concrete, small prescriptive suggestion to either the state government or the central government, other than the prime minister, you want him to speak, I got that. What would it be?
The first thing is for the people in both the Meitei community and the Kuki community to wake up. to wake up to realize that dear so-called leaders are playing with our lives, and that we should rise above the engineered conflict that has been generated on 3rd of May, that we, the people of the hills and the valley and across Manipur and Northeast, should rise above and see through the divisive politics of the criminalized democracy, which has subjected Manipur to the most violent times. With Barkha, you haven't seen the atrocities which has been committed. Beheadings. 83-year-old woman burned in her own house, that only her skull is left. A mother with her son burned alive in an ambulance. Eyes been gorged out. People celebrating a killing. This is not Rwanda. This is India, happening in the world's largest democracy. So our first appeal is to see through that some people are engineering the fight to rise above it, number one. Number two, we should immediately, not just the people of Manipur, but we call upon the people of India and any like-minded people to help us make this Truth and Reconciliation Commission work so that we can share our grievances and talk it out. Any issue.
We have a question from somebody, one of our Mojo members watching this in the live stream, Saraswati Iyer. I want to understand. She goes on to say, what do they want to stop this? What do you want? What will it take to stop this?
Yes, both sides, whoever have guns and they're fighting, they have to lay down their arms. To start the process of talks, peace talks, you have to lay down the arms. So the Indian government must, with all its power in the world, must ensure that the arms are laid down by both sides. The burnings of the hounds have to stop. I think this is very critical for now, so that we are able to get and then ensure that the relief, the medicines, the suffering of the people, we are able to respond to this humanitarian crisis which has engulfed both the communities. And finally, it's so important that the government of India, this is what I'm telling, India as a member of the United Nations must not feel shy, because right now, hundreds of thousands of weapons have been looted from gun shops, from armories, and to disarm and demobilization has to start. It's very critical that India can take the help of the United Nations Office for Disarmament to ensure that how these weapons, because as long as weapons are flooding in the Manipuri society.
You know that India will not do that. India's stated position is not going to allow the UN bodies to come. So short of that, Bina, I'm just making a practical point. I mean, I know your philosophical opinion, but I'm just giving a practical response.
Yes.
What should happen next? I mean, you said president's rule won't solve it. Is that a start?
It's not going to solve. No.
Is it a start? Is it a start? Is that an interim measure? It doesn't look like anybody's considering it, by the way, other than the people of Manipur who keep asking for it.
See, Barkha, the way I'm seeing this response is, it's like India has always denied that there is conflict within the Northeast. For the last 70 years, India has told that there is no conflict. It's like saying when you have cancer, you are saying you have a fever. A similar situation is happening in Manipur also. A similar situation is happening in Manipur.
I understand.
Law and order problem.
I understand.
So that is saying,
I'm only asking you as what can happen next. I've understood where you stand ideologically. I'm only asking you what specifically can happen next.
I think for now, in the last 24 hours, the guns have been silent. But at the same time, I'm seeing images of landmines being used. There has been capture of some more sophisticated weapons. But at least the burnings have stopped. Burnings of homes. The shootings have, at least in the last 24 hours. I don't know what will happen in the next 24 hours again. But there has been a lull. And I think it's important for whoever is engineering these conflicts that this stops, so that the communities can at least have a breather. It's been 48 days nonstop. It's the worst time that Manipur has ever seen. So it's I don't know how long people are going to hang through this, but Barkha, this is a very abnormal situation, and this needs extraordinary steps for peace to return. And this, again, the government of India, with so much of resources, machinery, and ideas and thoughts, they should be the one, and not to lift at women's organizations like ours, we are just a tiny little drop in the ocean. But we try to do this little healing that it's needed for the people of Manipur across communities at this time.
Well, I'm very sorry for what the people of Manipur are going through. I'm very sorry for what the women of Manipur are going through. I'm very sorry for what the children of Manipur are going through. And it's very, very important to not let the headlines vanish, to slip away from the fact that behind the meta politics, the meta ideological debates are individuals and their tragedies. And you have so painfully described some of them. Bina, take care. Thank you for talking to us in a moment of pain and suffering. May this lull in the violence hold, so that the two communities can at least reach across and have the beginnings of a conversation, which is so important. Thank you very much, Binalakshmi Nepram. Take care. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
We started Mojo right here in this basement. Just 4 people, 4. And now we're about to hit our first 1 million subscribers. So this is to say thank you to all of you for your support, for your respect, and for your encouragement. We've always gone to where the story is. During the pandemic, when television's big anchors were hunkered down in their studios or at their homes, we hit the road. We traveled from Delhi to Kerala, covering 30,000 kilometers in our small car, reporting from inside ICUs and inside slum tenements. Whether it's flash floods or war zones, we've always put our boots on the ground. In fact, we're just back from Punjab, tailing the Khalistani fugitive Amritpal Singh. And through all of this, we have always put you, the people, first. In an age of partisan polarized media where most journalists are either chamcha ya morcha, we believe the story is sacred and the truth of the story is what matters. And now, as we get ready for the next step, we need your help. Become a Mojo member and get first access to all our big interviews. Get a chance to ask our newsmakers questions. Get a chance to write and report for us for both our website and our channels. And also, interact with me and my colleagues directly through AMA sessions. Literally, ask me anything. Click on the join now right next to the subscribe button, and yes, also subscribe if you haven't yet, and become a Mojo member for just 159 rupees a month. Hope to see lots of you in our community.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.